I have with me today Sister Pfister. How you doing today, Sister Pfister?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate this.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
For the very first episode of the Non-Jaded You. Now, quick little story on that. I had it originally going to be the non-JWU, but then my wife said I should change it to this. So, because it fits more, because I'm not only looking to do ex Jehovah's Witnesses, also expand into like any other ex-religious cult member eventually down the line. So real quick cap of what this show is going to be about. It's to show that members of any high control religious group / cults that there is life after leaving. And despite the challenges it may present, that there can still be meaning to your life and purpose. So today we have, again, Sister Pfister. Brigette, all right by you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm just trying not to laugh because Sister Pfister makes me laugh.
Right. Well, I actually used to have a Sister Pfister in a hall I went to down in Florida.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, so anyways, you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness. How long have you been out now?
I have been out since 97, so about 21, 22 years.
Okay, very good. And so when you first came out of the religion 21, 22 years ago, what was the initial transition like for you? Like the first 6 months to a year being fresh out?
Well, it was really hard. So my story is a little bit interesting in that I tried to quit. I tried to fade. I didn't know that's what it was called at the time. In fact, I didn't know anyone else had ever been through anything similar because we weren't allowed to find that out. So when I was about 17 or 18, I had a sort of epiphany in English class in high school and figured out that, wow, I'm not crazy. There is something wrong with this religion and I don't want to be a part of it. And so, I mean, I wasn't sure that they didn't maybe possibly have the truth or that Jehovah didn't exist or whatever. I had my doubts, but I wasn't sure. So I stopped going to meetings and I stopped going out in service and thought that I could just, okay, I made a mistake and I can just back away from it. What I didn't count on was that I still lived with my mother, and my mother is not one to let anyone fade. So there were 6 or 8 months of every week elder visits, marking talks, all kinds of stuff. So by the time that I actually got disfellowshipped, I hadn't been to a meeting in 18 months. And the only reason I didn't disassociate myself was that they told me that that was an unforgivable sin and that I would never be able to come back if I did figure out it was the truth, if I disassociated, which incidentally is totally against their own rules. So they lied to me.
Well, yeah,
but
they're pretty well known for that.
right. Yeah. So when I actually was disfellowshipped, the first 6 months were really rough. Part of it was because I think anyone who is shunned by everyone, literally everyone they've ever known, is going to have a hard time, particularly when you're born in, you're raised in it, and you're indoctrinated to think that you're pre-programmed to fail, right?
Oh, yes,
They
absolutely.
pre-programmed us to just self-destruct without their control. And I think that's on purpose because they need cautionary tales, right? They need people who leave and commit suicide and people who leave and become drug addicts and get STDs and all kinds of horrible things.
Exactly.
So I was lucky in that I did not self-destruct. I've always been kind of, I've always been a reader. I've been compared to Hermione Granger recently. I love reading and education, and what I wanted to do was go to college. So I did, and I had a couple fits and starts. I wasn't ready, didn't have the right life skills. But that's really, the education is really ultimately what saved my life because I made some bad decisions and I did some really stupid things. I kind of did fall for the typical young ex-Jehovah's Witness, newly minted ex-Jehovah's Witness, thinking anything goes. there are no morals in the world. And then I found out that the world is actually more moral than the witnesses are.
Yeah, I remember you saying that on the last roundtable video.
It's very true.
And you were shocked, like, wow, they got more morals than I do? That's crazy.
Like, and then there was just also this weird thing about thinking that you're still somehow superior to worldly people because you used to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've come across that quite a bit, and I know I suffered from that too when I was first coming out. That, well, you can't tell me anything about morals. I was raised Jehovah's Witness. Like, who do you think you are telling me that I'm doing something wrong? And then I stopped and thought about it, and I was like, wow, this doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, I had a hard time when I first got out. And then I think the most important things are finding a good therapist and education.
Absolutely. What about your like relationships with other people? Like, did you form any friendships while you were in school? Did you have any friendships prior to leaving at all?
Yeah, well, so I was lucky in that I was in high school, and that's part of the things that kind of started to wake me up. And there were some things that were said at the Kingdom Hall in the Watchtower study at various times that made me kind of go, wait, what? That doesn't sound right. But those were just kind of annoying doubts. You know, it wasn't like anything that I could definitively say they're wrong, right? But when I was in high school, I started to make friends with some kids that were in school. And when I got my first car when I was 17, and that little bit of freedom, of course, my act of rebellion was to sign my own permission slips to go to debate meets and tell my mom that I had to work and go participate in the speech and debate team and the Spanish club and things like that. And that was my rebellion in high school. That's what I wanted to do, was go be involved. And so, yeah, I made a lot of friends that way. And I started to see that they weren't wicked, evil people. They weren't trying to do all these bad things that I had been told worldly people did. They were completely lovely, and they weren't judgmental. And I didn't have to worry that they were going to go report on me for thinking something or saying something or wearing the wrong thing. And it was very telling to me, like, wait a minute, what else are the witnesses not exactly truthful about then?
Right, and they're not all trying to get you to do things that the witnesses always tell you, like, oh, have sex, do these drugs,
right, yeah.
and, do all these bad things with us. They weren't doing any of that.
Right, they weren't sitting around talking about pornography and masturbation. They weren't
right.
sitting around. I mean, there were nothing like that. I mean, sure, we were teenagers, so there were people who were all interested in having sex, but it wasn't this depraved, crazy thing that I had always been taught.
Right, exactly.
And of course, there were no
plenty of that at the Kingdom Hall as it was.
Say what?
I said you got taught plenty of that at the Kingdom Hall as it was.
Right? Oh my God, the witnesses are worse than anybody else for talking about crazy stuff like
my
that.
viewers who don't know, Brigette has a series on sex in the Watchtower. It is fantastic. I was kind of hoping she would have had her little pearls on this morning.
Oh, well, I can. I do have them.
Awesome. Oh, my.
The pearls. Oh my.
Thank you.
The pearls have made an appearance. But yeah. So, well, with that series, I basically just started one day. I can't remember what I was doing. I think I was working on my mom's house. And they have so much literature, like everywhere. Mm-hmm. There is just boxes and boxes and boxes of Jehovah's Witness literature. And I happened to be thumbing through, I think it was the Young People Ask book, and came across thing, and it was just over and over. And so I went on the Watchtower Online, jw.org, and just looked up sex to see how many references there were. And they have so many articles and books and things about sex that they had to split it into like decades, like time periods.
That's crazy.
There are so many that they can't put them all in one search.
So that's why you decided to break it up by the decades, isn't it?
Yeah. So I said, well, I'm going to start with the 70s, which is when I was born, and just go forward. And I'm not looking at every single article that mentions sex, because some of them are just very repetitious. But the ones that are particularly egregious and stupid and silly, yeah, I'm gonna hit those.
Oh yeah, well I've sure been getting a kick out of those videos. Those have been awesome to
Oh,
watch.
they're fun. They are loads of
Uncomfortable
fun.
at times too, but yeah,
Yeah.
I can only imagine how it is for you to go through it. Just like
Yeah, it's hard to be like the straight character that's reading this stuff as if it's serious, because it's just
oh, I know.
horrible. And also, I mean, I mentioned that I have small children. I have 2 little boys, 5 and 7, and I don't want them overhearing that stuff. So it's
Right.
hard to find a time that I can record those videos,
Exactly.
because I don't want them exposed to that stuff at all.
Right. I can totally understand now. You know, I'm a father of 3 myself, and I wouldn't want them to be exposed to that. And sitting in the Kingdom Hall with them and they going over that stuff, I was just hoping that they were paying attention to something else other than the platform.
Right.
And
But if they're
clearly
not
they
paying
were.
attention to the platform, you're expected to smack them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, you know, if the baby makes one little peep, you're being asked to take them into the back room by somebody. Anyway,
Ridiculous.
those are stories for other days, not for this. So anyways, going on now, after you left, so you got some people that you know that after you left, you starting to realize these people aren't as bad as Watchtower always made them out to be. So what was like the really first worldly thing you wanted to do when you left?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it was big. I wanted to go to college. And so, as I mentioned, I did go to college, and I realized that I was not prepared. I kind of really, I mean, I didn't fail exactly. I just quit going to some classes, and I was very erratic in my attendance, and I got sidetracked by dating and things like that, which any young person generally will. And so my first college experience was good and bad, because I realized I wasn't ready. But the first really worldly thing I wanted to do was, besides college, because that's really big. I was very afraid, like many of us were who were raised, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, of demons.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the demon stories were terrifying, and
Oh,
it was all, anything could get you demonized, watching movies and playing games and buying things at yard sales. And I mean, it was just really stupid, I thought. But I was still afraid, because that was just ingrained. It was ground in,
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one day I remember I got really frustrated because I was tired of being afraid all the time. And so I said, okay, fine, Satan, if you're coming to get me, come and get me. And I did systematically everything that I could think of that I had been told would make me demonized, because I'd already been accused of being a witch by the elders.
Right.
I told that story in my very first YouTube video, so I won't go into it here. But basically, they told me I was a witch and I was demonized, which was not true. A bitch maybe, but not a witch.
Yeah, I just listened to that the other day because I hadn't yet, and I went and I listened to it. I remember you saying that. So yeah.
Yeah. So I watched The Exorcist, and I watched Poltergeist, and I started reading Stephen King novels, and I went to yard sales and thrift stores and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like literally nothing. Not one vomiting noise, no lights turning off and on, no vibrating beds, no nothing. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, wait a minute. In all the demon stories that the witnesses told, the demons never actually hurt anybody. Like there was never actually any real consequence. It was just noises and dumb stuff like that, which my 3-year-old can do, right? I didn't have a 3-year-old then, but you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
a little kid can do. And it was kind of like a light switch came on to me. Like, again, well, there's something else they're lying about.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what else. And so that was my first like real, oh, wow. And then, you know, of course the holidays, because I had always wanted to celebrate the holidays. I love Christmas music. I love the traditions and yeah, the decorations and the
Oh,
food.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And costumes.
Costumes. I haven't got to do that yet. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. You'll love it so much.
Like I was telling you before we started the video, my kids did Halloween last year, and I went with them, but I didn't have enough funds at the time to buy ourselves costumes, so we just did it for them. So
I like to make them. I like to make costumes.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, it's loads of fun.
I'm not very good at sewing.
It just takes practice. My oldest son this year wants to be this character that he has made up that has a pumpkin for a head, but it's not Ichabod Crane. It's a pumpkin with red eyes and some sort of suit for the body. So I'm going to have to draw it and then try to make it for him.
Well, I hope you'll post pictures of it up on Facebook.
Oh yeah, of course.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and especially when you have little kids, it's all of the holidays are like, oh my gosh, so much fun.
Oh yeah.
Because you can see that wonder and joy and happiness, and I like to think like what my sister and I would have been like had we been allowed to participate in that stuff as kids, because we really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember, just like you said, I always loved the Christmas music, the lights, the decorations. You know, I always wanted to get the gifts, and I never could as a kid. You know, I was always so jealous of that. And then, you know, like I was telling you before we recorded, last year was my first Christmas, and
oh wow,
I got to reunite with my parents too, because I told them the story in my bio video where, you know, I had shunned my parents and then I reunited with them. And we celebrated Christmas together for the first time.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And I went up to their place in New York. It was a white Christmas. It was like perfect.
Oh,
and just
man.
all the presents and the joy on the kids' faces. It was magical. I mean, really, it's when they say the magic of Christmas, that's what you see in it. Yes,
absolutely.
There's the consumerism aspect of it and all that, but when you see the joy on your children's faces, opening
that's the whole point.
And that's where it's all at, right there.
That's the whole point.
My son was going crazy. It was so much fun. But anyways, this video is not about me, so I'm going. But it's great.
It does speak to the point of there is happiness and joy and love and life in the world, and that's what it's about.
Exactly, and that's exactly what this series is supposed to promote, is that there is life and happiness, and you can be fulfilled outside of Watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your schooling, was it something that you had wanted to do like your whole life when you went to college, or is it something that you didn't know what you wanted to do, so you figured it out while you were in college?
Well, so I had always had an interest in performing and theater and stuff like that since I was young. I loved movies and musicals and plays and things like that, and I wanted to do that, but as a witness, as you know, that's not an option. Mm-hmm. And so when I was a younger teenager, the brothers tried to kind of show me that you could use those skills as a witness, and I was in a drama. But that actually did more to dissuade me from being a witness than anything else, because it was like, it wasn't even pantomime. You didn't even get to say the lines. Every single movement was scripted. It was dumb. I mean, it was just, no.
Well,
so I kind of had an eye for, I'm sorry?
You got to do the dramas at the conventions?
Yeah, I was in one.
I used to always want to be in those when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, because it's the only okay way to perform. But once, by that point, you know, I had already been in some school plays and stuff, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't what I loved about performance. So I told a story in another video of mine about my kind of epiphany in English class about like, whoa, that ties into my wanting to go to college because everyone, all of my teachers at some point had said to me, well, what college are you going to? Or, you know, you have to do this for college. And they would be shocked when I would say, well, I'm not going. And I had a lot of teachers who took me aside and said, wait a minute, you have to, of all the people, you have to go to college. And so it had been kind of rattling around in my head. But that day, after my teacher, we had that moment in class, when the bell rang, I went up to him and I said, I was almost in tears. And I said, I need to go to the guidance counselor. And he said, go, I'll tell your next teacher. So I went to the guidance counselor and I said, this was 6 weeks before the end of term. I said, I need to go to college. I have not prepared. I have no idea what to do. Please help me. But I cannot live the life that has been planned for me because my parents already had a brother picked out that they wanted me to marry. They had, who was the most asexual being on the planet. Let me just add that. Like,
wow.
And they, you know, I was supposed to pioneer when I graduated, and I just knew that I would not live that life. I would not survive that life. It was not who I was. And so I decided that day, like, college is what I have to do. That's what I want to do. It had always before that been, I wish I could, but I know I can't.
Right.
And that day changed it. It was like, nope, I'm going.
Yep. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Especially that you made that decision at that age. And you knew you weren't going to stick with this religion, and you started to plan out where you wanted to go.
Right.
And that's fantastic. That's some, you know, advice that I would really want to give to people who are considering leaving, especially young ones, and that don't know what they want to do, but start planning and start making an action plan for when you finally can leave and break free. And go pursue your dreams.
Right. And that's important. So when you're really young too, sometimes you have a dream, but you have to also be flexible and know when the dream is not feasible for you. So that's what happened to me. I went into college as a theater major, realizing I didn't have life skills. I wasn't really prepared for college. I did realize very early on though, that I was in high school, a big fish in a small pond.
Yes.
Pretty talented for where I was. But when I went to college, I found out pretty quickly I was talented enough to get in to the program, but I was not at the top of the pile anymore. And this was at a small South Carolina college. This wasn't even in New York or LA, where you have to go to make it if you're going to be in theater. And I realized after my first semester, you know, I like to eat too much.
Yep.
I have a lifestyle that I want. If I'm going to be out in the world till Armageddon comes or whatever, I have a lifestyle that I want to live, and scraping by on ramen noodles forever ain't it.
Exactly.
And so I realized that my dream of being a theater star was not going to happen. And I've always been pretty pragmatic. So I said, well, all right, plan B. So I went back to a 2-year college and got associate's degree in management. And then I ended up going, I took a little bit of time off, and then I went to the local 4-year university in the town where I lived with my then husband. I got married when I was 23, which was a terrible choice. Still made terrible choices back then. But I went back and did a double major in computer information systems and business administration. And that kind of opened, when I got my bachelor's degree, that kind of opened the door to, I got a job at Clemson University as a grant coordinator, and that set me up for the next 13 years as a research administrator in the university. And that sort of set the ball rolling for where I ended up, which is also still working for a university, but I'm now an assistant dean, and I work for the college that handles all visual and performing arts. So I'm right back where my original love was,
Right.
theater and music.
Right.
I'm not performing, but I'm helping other people reach that dream who are talented enough and have what it takes. And to me, that's cool.
Oh yeah, that's awesome that you can do that. You're kind of like the person behind the people, which is not a bad place to be either.
Right.
You know,
still make things happen.
Still make things happen, exactly. So when did you finally meet your current husband?
Well, so I had to do that, I have to go back to my first husband. So I had met him when I was in high school, and we got married a couple years after high school. And then he was not a great husband by any means. And so I was going through a pretty nasty divorce during my last semester of my undergraduate degree, which was not fun. I actually had to sit next to him at graduation.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was fun.
All the memories. Huh?
But I was going through that. We had been in the process of the divorce for about 6 or 8 months, and I had started going to the gym, and I had joined a church, and I had done all these things to try to, just live through that very difficult time. And at the gym, I met a guy who was a trainer, and he was really, really pretty. I mean, oh my goodness, he was gorgeous. And he had a very interesting story. So he had lost about 300 pounds and was, this inspirational story. Well, he asked me out. I was like, okay, cool. So I went out with him a couple of times and realized real quick that he was dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, the guy he was pretty, he was an idiot, and he was also very full of himself to the point that he was hitting on the waitress while we were at dinner.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, really? Well, so the last time that we went out, we went to a Florida State University alumni event. It was a game watching party at this sports bar. And my current husband is a Florida State alum and was running the South Carolina chapter at that time. So he was in charge of the event. And I happened to meet him while I was on a date with another guy.
So you did to him what he was trying to do to you.
Well, but it wasn't really like that at first. Like at first I just met Les, and we were friends. And then we were friends for a while as a group. And then
right.
I think I told the story of my accidental first date on one of my other videos, but I'll give you the quick version. There was a group of people, including the gym guy, who I was no longer even thinking about going out with ever again. At that point, we were supposed to go out to a concert. We were going to go see Kiss Army, and everybody was going to dinner first, but I had just graduated. I didn't have a real job yet. I was waiting tables, and I was barely making enough money to cover the rent on my apartment, and I was not in a good place financially. So I told Les, I said, I don't have the money to go to the dinner, so maybe I should skip the whole thing because I'm just not doing well right now. And he said, oh, no, you should come to my house. We'll eat something here, and then we'll go, and that'll be fine. I was like, okay. So I went to his house expecting like we're going to have bologna sandwiches or something. That's perfectly fine. I get there. He's making his own pasta sauce. Like, the house is clean. Things match. He's like, wow, wait, what? And I thought to myself, so the gaydar didn't go off. Like, I don't think he's gay. Is he gay? No, he was not gay. But it was just so
gay to be clean.
Well, no, but it was just, everything was so, like, he had hired a decorator.
Right.
Everything, it was perfect. And he was in there cooking, and it was just lovely. And I was not expecting that. And so we ate dinner there. We had a great conversation. It was fun. And then we went to the venue for the concert, and these guys kept texting us, but they never showed up. and finally ended up like, we're going to a party. We decided not to come to the concert. So it was just me and Les the whole time. And we had a ball. We had so much fun. It was great. And so when we got done, we went, he took me back to his house, to the car. And, you know, I was like, man, this was fun. He goes, yeah, we should definitely do it again. I said, okay, let's not invite them next time. And he kind of grinned and he's like, okay. So 3 weeks later, we said, we're exclusive. We're not dating anyone else. And, you know, here we are now. We've been married 12 years this year and together for 16.
Awesome.
And yeah, he's the love of my life. He's my best friend.
That's
Best thing
awesome.
that ever happened to me.
And just to clarify, he was never a JW or anything?
No. He was raised Mormon when he was young. His mother is Mormon.
Oh, wow.
But when he was 12, they get a choice, right?
Mhm.
They get a choice. He decided that he didn't want to continue going to church, and he was not interested in going on a mission or any of that. Like, he just, no. So he quit.
Oh, wow. If only we were given a choice.
Right?
I know.
About anything.
You don't get a choice. Your choice is you get to pioneer, go to Bethel, and if you're a sister, you get to marry now it has to be a ministerial servant or better, according to Aunt Mom.
Right?
Yeah. The level of stupidity they keep bringing just,
Yeah.
It disgusts me to think that I used to be part of that.
Right, me too. And that I used to treat people that way.
Yeah.
I think it was okay. That's the worst part. Like,
oh yeah,
there's this idea that if you have a group of people who agree with you, then you're right and you're okay, and that is not true.
No, it's okay to disagree with others.
Yeah.
It's perfectly okay. That's how we get healthy collaboration.
Yep.
So, did any like big surprises come along the way other than what we've discussed already?
Well, I don't know about big surprises, but big lessons, I think, happened. You know, first of all, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we were taught to be very gullible and trusting.
Mm-hmm.
And that can get you in trouble when you're out in the world, because there are wonderful people in the world, but there are also bad people too, just like there are good and bad people inside the congregation. What the witnesses want to have you believe is that all witnesses are good and all worldly people are bad. But that's not actually how it works. You have to get out of the black and white thinking, and you have to be, you have to have your eyes open and know the warning signs that somebody is trying to take advantage of you. Because really, when you first come out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, you're kind of a sitting duck for predators and people who want to take advantage of you, because we are very trusting, and we're open, and we're taught to be very friendly and helpful and just, oh, yay, you know.
Exactly.
And that's really kind of dangerous, especially if you're young and naive when you're first coming out.
Absolutely.
That was a big one for me. I think that just about everyone, even if you had a wonderful family experience as a witness, I think it's important for everyone to see a therapist, because there are things that are ingrained in there that you need to explore.
Mm-hmm.
I think through therapy, I learned about black and white thinking, about narcissism and gaslighting, which the witnesses do a lot of.
Oh, yes.
But also about making good choices for yourself and learning how to recognize and listen to your inner voice, which is something that the witnesses also try to pound out of you, because you can't lean on your own understanding, and the heart is treacherous and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Unlearning those
choices because of that too. So
yeah, it's very important. There's just so much that is wrapped up in it, that as you know, for me, having been out so long, there are still things that come up for me that I have to think about and say, well, this is because of my conditioning as a witness. This is not a real feeling or a real justified thing that's happening. So I also was diagnosed with PTSD as a result of my various experiences with the witnesses and with getting disfellowshipped and all of those things. And so I think there's a lot of witnesses that come out with PTSD or something similar, and that requires treatment in order to get past it. But understanding that being happy and living your best life is a choice, and it's a daily choice. And sometimes it's hard to remember that, you know, it's a choice you can make.
Yes.
So choose to be happy and do what makes you happy.
Exactly. And, you know, I won't sit here and say every day is great, but some days are better than others. But
Right.
like you said, you have a choice. Do you want to see through the issue and try to be happy? Or do you want to sit there and just wallow in your own misery and continue to drag it out?
Right.
You know,
And a lot of people, I know I needed help to do this, but a lot of people need help to see past what you've been told and taught to believe about yourself when you're a witness, that you do have choices and you can control the outcome.
mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to believe what they say, even if it's your own parents or your own siblings or your own best friend in there as a witness telling you, well, now you're a bad person because you're on the outside. That doesn't make it true.
Right. Exactly.
You can be a better person on the outside.
And, you know, I've found that to be so true, especially now, as we were talking about earlier, you know, like just some of the teachings of the witnesses, how they think they're so morally superior, but yet they still believe that, what, 7-8 billion people are going to die at Armageddon, and it's okay that they die so we can build our paradise over their graves and rotting flesh.
It's horrible.
But that's perfectly acceptable.
It's horrible. And, you know, you don't think about it that way until you're actually able to look at it objectively.
I never thought of it that way when I was in. You know, I can honestly say as a witness, when I was going door to door and people wouldn't be interested, you know, kind of that little inkling in the back of your head, well, guess I'll just let Jehovah deal with them.
Yep.
You know, and that was the mentality.
But that's why they don't want you as a witness to have worldly friends.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that'll flip your switch pretty quick, is when you meet someone, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend or just a really good friend who is not a witness, and you try to witness to them and they're not interested, then it becomes more personal. It's like, but this is a good person. How could Jehovah just kill them at Armageddon when just because they don't want to come to meetings?
And you know,
that's
it's funny.
not cool.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
In my journey out, you know, I'm a welder by trade, and when I first went into it, you know, you think construction trades, you know, men are going to be rough and gruff and, you know, just hard nosed and, you know, just mean about everything. And I remember kind of expecting that going in, and I've been doing it for 11 years now. And the thing I found out about construction workers, they're some of the nicest, most genuine people you ever want to meet on the planet.
Yeah.
They'd give you the shirt right off their back if you needed it.
Yep.
You know, and it was actually a guy, I can't remember who he was, but back in 08, 09, somebody said something to me at the shipyard I was working at in Tampa. It was my first doubt that I had. And from there, it's just been this long journey until last year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just like you said.
Once you start seeing the things that make you go, wait, what? You know, it's some people have a slow progression. I know for me, there were things from the very beginning when I was a kid that I remember staring at the Bible story book, the flood picture, the woman with the baby, and asking my mom why Jehovah would kill the baby, because the baby hadn't done anything bad.
Yeah.
You know, from that age, and asking, you know, going through a child molestation issue and the way that it was handled by the elders, and being told that I was responsible, and thinking to myself, well, but shouldn't Jehovah do something about this? Like, this isn't right, you know, even at that age.
Right.
I mean, so all my life looking back, I can see that the doubts and the questions were there. but the brainwashing overrode it until I had some reference point outside of that.
Exactly.
And once that happened, it all started to fall into place.
And, you know, I was the same way. I had these questions here and there throughout my life, but like you said, the indoctrination overrides it. But once you are out and you look back at it objectively, you're like, you know what? That really was messed up. Whatever your question may have been. And, you know, that was your gut trying to tell you something. That's what we discussed earlier. You know, listen to your gut feelings, because there's a reason you have those.
Right.
And, you know, we were taught as witnesses to bury our feelings and bury our gut feelings and just go with this.
And to accept Watchtower's rules and dictates without question. So that really speaks to the power of that brainwashing, because it really didn't occur to me until I had children. Oh, nice dog.
Yeah, I have to.
It didn't occur to me until I had children what it would take, how powerful that conditioning has to be to make a parent turn on their child.
Oh, yes.
And it made me understand a little bit more how controlled my parents are, because they were both raised in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you start getting compounded generational trauma at that point. But I think about it very much the same way my mother-in-law does, who is Mormon. And I've talked with her before about, you know, my family and the situation and everything, and to get a perspective from someone who is also devout in a somewhat non-mainstream religion, you know, to get her thoughts on it. And she is honestly the sweetest woman on the planet. She's lovely. She said, well, honey, even God knows better than to try to come between me and my children. And that's the way it should be.
It is. Absolutely. And, you know, unfortunately, there's too many people going through child shunning, child parental shunning. You know, like I said, I used to be a child that shunned my parents, you know, and they left back in 2010. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I was still in, and then I decided to shun them for a while, and then we reunited. So really, it really screws with your mind, the religion, the indoctrination, because there was still that point when I thought, well, it's still the truth, even though I have these doubts about it, there's still something true about it. And, you know, you go back to it and it's just, then you step away from it, you're just like, what was I thinking?
Right. And then I imagine that there's a lot of, it's heartbreaking. I imagine there's a lot of guilt that comes with that too. Like, and the thought that, gosh, I've wasted so much time that I could have spent with my family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have that kind of feeling on the flip side. You know, my family that shunned me for so long, you know, it's like there's time that we're never going to get back no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because it's pointless. There's absolutely no reason for it.
It is pointless. And, you know, especially in light of what you just went through recently with your mother,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's just terrible that you can't get that time back.
Right.
You know? Well, in conclusion, I would like to ask you, do you have any advice that you would like to give for people who are coming out and trying to rebuild their lives?
Yeah. So I touched on this a little bit before, but I would definitely say therapy is very important. Even if you feel like you don't need it, go, because it will help you. It's about helping you see the patterns and the extent of the conditioning and brainwashing, because anyone who has been a witness for any length of time has it, because otherwise you couldn't be a witness for any length of time. Exactly. So I would encourage everyone to go talk to a therapist. I would say at minimum for a year. I've been in therapy for decades and I plan to stay there because it's helping me and it's been instrumental in my success. I would also say, do not feel guilty about cutting toxic people out of your life.
Absolutely.
If you feel that someone is toxic to you and they're treating you in a way that makes you feel less about yourself, less positive. It makes you feel like you're a bad person or whatever. Don't hesitate to back away from those people. It's okay. Also, I would encourage getting your education, whether it's going to college, going to trade school. This country needs trades.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're always going to need plumbers and welders and construction workers and all of those people, and they make a ton of money. In many cases, your average plumber or welder is going to make more than your average college professor. I know, because I am one of the people who gets college professors paid. So you have a choice in what you want to do and what you want to be, and the time is going to pass anyway. When you look at degree programs and trade schools and training programs, it may look daunting to think, oh, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years if you want a PhD, but the time's going to pass anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Have something to show for it.
Exactly.
Go after it. Do it. And just remember that you're not limited in the way that you used to be limited. If you want to do something, you can do it. You might have to make some sacrifices. It might not be pretty for a while, but you do have the power to do it. Go for it.
Absolutely. Very, very good advice there. And again, I thank you, Brigette, for joining me today.
Yeah,
really
thanks for having me.
This was really nice. Getting to know you a little bit better, and being able to start this series. Fantastic guest to have. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is awesome, and I think this is a fantastic idea, because people that are coming out, even people who have been out for a long time, need to see that there's life outside. You can have fun. I mean, one thing we didn't touch on, hobbies.
Oh, yes.
Using your free time.
Yes.
All this free time that you now have because you're not a witness.
Yes.
You don't have to study your watchtower. You don't have to read publications. You don't have to go out in service. You don't have to prepare for meetings. You have all this free time. Go do fun stuff.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, I just got into in May, the end of May, I started doing martial arts. I do Taekwondo, and I just, my kids and I do it. And I just tested on last Tuesday and got my green stripe belt. And it is so much fun. Go do the things that you enjoy. If it's going to bars and listening to live music and drinking craft beer, do it. Because you can. Anyway, so sorry. Digressing.
You got them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. That's great. No, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I forgot to ask that. And I had it in my notes too. So I have notes for a reason, but I was listening to you.
Oh, well, I mean, this is a great conversation, and I really appreciate your having me on. And this is a fantastic idea. I hope that you continue the series, and I look forward to watching the next guest that you have on.
Well, I won't ruin the surprise. I have one already lined up, so.
Can't wait.
And people will recognize who he is too, I'm sure.
Great.
So, but anyways, again, thank you so much for joining me, Brigette. I really appreciate you. This was awesome, awesome first show. I said 30 minutes. We're at an hour roughly.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. So, but anyways, viewers, thank you for watching, and please hit the like button and subscribe. And I'll put links to Brigitte's channel down below. If you don't know who she is by now, you better learn who she is. So anyways, I thank you all for watching.
Thanks a lot. See you later.
Bye.